Solomon says, or wealth lost through some misfortune, meaning the more you have to lose. Solomon says, naked a man comes from his mother's womb, and as he comes, so he departs. He takes nothing from his labor that he can carry in his hand. The more you have, the more you'll leave behind. Now, this could be very depressing if you didn't look at it from an eternal perspective. If you look at it from an eternal perspective, you say, we're going to live forever in inconceivable wealth, in the very presence of God, no lack, all that we'll be able to eat and drink and the feasts, and never lacking anything physically, psychologically, spiritually. He'll wipe away the tears from every eye. We will never want anything. We'll have all that we need. So this is actually, it means that once we leave this world, the more you have, the more you'll leave behind. But if you've stored up for yourself treasures in heaven, your biggest treasures will not be behind you, but ahead of you. If you've stored up your treasures on earth, which Jesus commands us not to do, and we'll get to that passage in Matthew 6 eventually. If you've stored up your treasures on earth, then it means every day of your life you're moving away from your treasures, right? Because the day is coming sooner and sooner and sooner when you'll leave your treasures behind. If, on the other hand, you've laid up for yourselves treasures in heaven, every day you get closer to the day you die, you're moving not away from your treasures, you're moving toward your treasures. The person who spends his life backing away from his or her treasures has reason to despair. The person who spends his life moving toward his treasures has reason to rejoice. Doesn't that just make perfect sense? That's just the reality of the way it is. So when you don't have an eternal perspective, this is all very depressing. And Ecclesiastes is full of wisdom, but there are passages such as this where if that's all you have, that is very depressing. But if you look at it from an eternal perspective, it's actually liberating. Because we already know we're going to leave it behind. So to find out it isn't bringing happiness to our lives in the first place, and then we should be more free to give it away and find that when we store up our treasures in heaven, it doesn't rob us of joy, it brings us joy.